Hi, I'm Dr. Alex Korb. I'm a neuroscientist mindset coach, and I'm the author of The Upward Spiral. Neuroscience is something that people often confuse with neurology. Neurology is for MDs, physicians studying what goes wrong with the brain and treating things like stroke or epilepsy. Neuroscience is a research track trying to understand how the brain functions. So I got a PhD in neuroscience, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of those insights so you can understand how your brain works and maybe make some small tweaks so you can optimize it and unlock your full potential.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Agile for Agilists Podcast, the series made by Agile enthusiasts for Agile enthusiasts. And now for your hosts, Drew Podwal and Brad Nelson.
Hey Agilists, Brad here. In this episode, we're thrilled to be joined by Dr. Alex Korb, a renowned neuroscientist, author of The Upward Spiral, and ultimate Frisbee coach. His groundbreaking work sheds light on how our brains thrive through autonomy and acceptance, reinforcing core Agile values and the importance of servant leadership and psychological safety. We're honored to have him with us, and we know you'll get a lot out of this conversation. So let's get it started.
After the book came out, it's done really well. I've been, very grateful. But after it came out, a lot of people reached out to me. It's like, oh, this is so fascinating, helpful. But how do I apply it to my life? And at first, I was like, ugh, now I have to respond to all these emails. And that's when the roads really intersected of this is the stuff that I've been teaching the team for 10 years or 12 years at that point. And I now, from the neuroscience, understand the theoretical basis. And I was like, oh, I actually like talking about this stuff more than I like sitting by myself writing about it. So I was like, oh, well, sure. If you want my help, the book sort of lays out hey, here are all the tools. But you kind of often need someone to teach you how to master those tools for your specific circumstances and your unique life. And I'm glad you brought up that cooking example. That also reminded me of there's a cookbook called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat. And she talks about, these are the principles that make food taste better. Anytime you're eating a bite of food and you're like, this doesn't taste good. Well, okay, these are the knobs that you can adjust. And a lot of the stuff that I do, people could very easily characterize as brain hacks. People read the book, oh, okay, it's a bunch of brain hacks. So you just do this and this and this. But what I work with people on and what I really tried to write the book about is how to master these principles. Because I could just give you a list. The first half of the book explains everything about how the brain works and why it gets stuck in these patterns. The second half is oh, here's how you use exercise, here's how you use sleep. And so you could just create a list and just hey, just do X, Y, Z, whatever. But there's not a recipe that will work for everyone, because here's the truth is great chefs like Julia Childs didn't follow recipes. They create recipes because enough people are hey, I want to do what you're doing. And they're okay, well, I'll try and simplify it and document it to an approximation of what I've done. And but they're not following recipes. They are taking their mastery of those principles and then just acting on instinct. And so when you get a cut of meat and it's fattier than normal, or your carrots are smaller than normal, or you ran out of celery, or your oven is a little bit running hot or cold, you understand the principles and you adjust. But if you are like most people, they're like, well, I'm supposed to be scientific and follow a protocol. Like, scientists don't follow protocols, they create protocols. Like, yeah, if you know nothing about what you're studying or what you're doing, then you start with the protocol, and that's like the baseline. If you're trying to be happier, more productive, well then, yeah, like don't try and figure it out entirely on your own. Science has done a lot of the hard work. Start with like, well, here's approximately how much sleep you should get and how much exercise most people need and how much social connection and whatever. But like, those are averages across many people. You specifically, at this exact point in your life, might need slightly more sleep, or you might need slightly more exercise, or like, well, what kind of exercise fits in with your specific life and your unique brain? Because like, I like ultimate frisbee. If there was a brain scan that told me I should play rugby instead because it would be more fun, I'd be like, what? But like, all my friends play ultimate frisbee. Like, what does that even mean? Or there's actually a study that showed people who play racket sports live longer. So if I'm trying to be scientific, should I be like, oh, just follow that protocol at face value and be like, well, this the scientist said if I want to live longer, then I have to play racket sports. So I guess I can't play ultimate frisbee. Like, no, scientific research done on other people, that's the starting point, and then you integrate that in with your own understanding of yourself. But most people think that following science is like, okay, you just get this protocol and you stop there, and then they don't do the other piece of understanding of like, oh, but do I like this? Like, can I do it? And it's the exact, bringing it back to the cooking analogy. You could follow Julia Child's steps exactly in the exact way that she intended and still not love it, because you might not like beef bourguignon, or you might like it, like if you're making chocolate chip cookies, you might like your chocolate chip cookies a little crispier, but you might like them softer or with more chocolate chips, or you hate walnuts. So like, on average, maybe people don't like walnuts in chocolate chip cookies, but that shows you what the limits of averages are. So if you know nothing about yourself, yeah, start with the Toll House recipe, whatever, like, okay. And then your own subjective experience will guide you from there of like, oh, no, actually, that I didn't like that. Okay, well, then that becomes your new starting point, and then you can iterate from there. And that's like, it's basically directing the process of scientific exploration or the scientific method, like, on yourself. Like, how can I be more motivated and connected and happier? You can maybe start with a protocol, but that's just the starting point.
I love where you're going with that, because I feel like that applies to so many things, and that's something that Drew and I talk about a lot. And I know even Mike Rother talks about it, who wrote the Toyota Way, because every company is trying to recreate Toyota's way of working, but they're not Toyota, so it needs to be slightly different. And it's the same thing with any of these consulting, coaching type things, where people write a book, they say, do these, 10 steps and you'll be successful, and they fail because they're trying to just go through the motions, and they don't understand the reasoning behind it, or they don't modify it to their situation. But I think it's a balance too, because I think it's easy to not give something a fair shot too, and just be like, oh, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a challenge to know, like, oh, is this something like that I don't like just because like I'm not good at it yet? Like the first time I made beef bourguignon, like, oh, do I just not like this dish because I did it poorly? Or do I not like it because it's just fundamentally I don't like the taste of it? And you can't always know the answer to that question the first time, but the better you are at understanding yourself, the more you start to see patterns, and then you can start to see, oh, I don't like this situation that I'm in. Oh, I tend to not like new situations. Okay. So like, let me factor that in and not jump to rash conclusions about like, oh, something's going wrong. Like, oh no, that's what I tend to always think whenever, things start to go off the rails. So maybe the world isn't collapsing, and maybe this is just exactly how I always feel at this point in the project. And someone else might not feel this way, but like, this is how I feel, so I should incorporate that.
Yeah, I also want to fanboy over your book a little bit for a minute because it is phenomenal. I have been a coach for a minute in software and Agile, and it was my own personal journey into positive psychology that really ended up leading me to you. So like Sean Aker has a book, The Happiness Advantage, and I had checked all the boxes like he said, right? Like I was a manager, family of 4, I drive the Cadillac, I have the house with the white fence, I have, the Beagle. I have all of those things that we're supposed to do to reach the American dream. And I was like, this kind of sucks. Why is that? And so I went back to that and I was looking at that, and it was all personal, but because I'm a coach, it kind of slowly starts working its way into my professional life. But your book, to me, was like the missing ingredient, like the key. It just kind of unlocked why that is.
Yeah.
Because it's been a minute since I did high school biology, so some of this stuff was a little, I didn't retain it. But when you're talking about the chemicals, like I understood how an SSRI works for the first time, like ever in my life, and understanding the biological wiring behind it. It's not just like a psychologist said this, or it's not just like some, hippie consultant said this. It's like, no, like this is how we function and how we work, and we're working against our own nature oftentimes. It's just great.
Yeah, no, because a lot of times people, and thank you so much for that. A lot of times people wonder, like, why do I feel so demotivated? Like, why do I tell myself I want to exercise, but I end up stuck on the couch, like watching Netflix? Like, what's wrong with me? And a lot of times the answer is that's just how the human brain works. Like, there's nothing wrong with you, or maybe there's something wrong with you, but like not from what you described. Like, that's just a very common experience of having a human brain. And that's what I found so validating as I was doing neuroscience research. Like, oh, I thought that was just like something weird or wrong about me. It's like, no, that happens because different parts of your brain evolved for different purposes. Like, why do I say I want to do this, but I do this instead? Well, because different parts of your brain want different things. They're pulling you in different directions, and you don't have total control over all of that. But by understanding it, then it's less frustrating because you have some control. And it's sort of like, in the olden days, people had no idea how to be able to predict thunderstorms, and they're terrifying and frightening. Now we have better technology. We can predict thunderstorms. You can't stop the thunderstorm, but it's coming. And yeah, you can prepare for it, or you can stay inside or whatever. And like, for a lot of aspects of our biology, if you just realize like, oh, that's just completely normal, and actually very likely, given what is happening to me right now or my previous circumstances, like, oh, I can predict it. I may not be able to completely control it, but if I can predict it, oh, well, then I can plan for it or adjust for it, or at least stop making it worse by getting mad at myself for something that is just a description of how the brain works.
I wish they would teach your book or your subjects in like business school or an MBA program. And that's the other kind of realization. And I've been kind of, I've had some talks that have been related. That was one of the reasons I first reached out to you, is I was like, hey, does this correlating research, am I tying that together right? Because I don't have a PhD or a background in research. So thank you very much for confirming that for me. Is that like, we spend so much time focusing on how can we improve the tangibles like process or the products we use or the tools we use, and we try to control humans in the same way. And we don't, even like HR, human resources, we don't know how humans work.
Yeah.
And they're our most important asset at any company.
Yeah. Well, that also highlights one of my frustrations on my journey, because you had mentioned positive psychology and Sean Acor's TED Talk, by the way. I loved, like, he's one of the most,
Yes.
like a top 10 most popular TED Talks. And there's a lot of like positive psychology studies that I was like, oh yeah, this is like brilliant. This is so helpful, like great hack. The neuroscientist in me was like, oh, okay, but like why? And the desire to understand why is not something that everybody has, but a lot of people who with technical backgrounds who become developers, or just a lot of people who are perfectionists or scientists or writers, like we're not used to just doing something because someone was like, well, just do it, you'll feel better. You're like, yeah, but why? And ironically, that yeah, but why is a very helpful tendency that your brain has that makes you very successful in science or in computer science or whatever. And yet it also sometimes gets in the way that if you could just stop asking why and just take something on faith and just do it, you'd probably be happier. But like, you can't fundamentally change the kind of person that you are. And so understanding the neuroscience helped bridge that gap where I was like, oh, it's not just like do this, take us on faith. Oh, that's actually affecting your dopamine circuitry, or that's changing your habit circuit, or it's reducing the stress hormone cortisol. And then, oh, that makes other changes easier. The other problem, though, that I had with positive psychology was like the fundamental development and conception of it. Most of psychology, for most of its history, was studied on like how does behavior mess up. Like there's a lot, abnormal psychology was really popular, like how do people develop certain tendencies, and it was just sort of like an abstract thing. And I believe it was Martin Seligman who was like, maybe we should study the people who are the happiest. Like, what are they doing right? And if we can understand like the patterns that they are in, then we could just repeat those and do that. And it's like a great idea, but the flaw in it is like if you're trying to understand basketball, like let's just study the people who are the best at basketball and see what they're doing. Oh, well, they're practicing shooting 3 hours a day, and they're getting physically fit. Like, oh, and they dunk. Like, that's where it becomes unhelpful, because someone could be like, oh, well, you want to get good at basketball, well, then do X, Y, and Z. Oh, and like also just jump up and dunk it in the hoop. And that's when you're like, oh, wait, hold up a second. Like, I can't do that. And then you're like, but that's what the best basketball players do. It's like, right, because it's natural for them. So like a lot of times if we study the happiest people, we can't just copy what they're doing, because a lot of what they're doing isn't them trying to do it. It's just naturally who they are. And a lot of times I was like, oh, well, happiest people are just grateful all the time. The happiest people don't let things bother them. They're not perfectionists or whatever. It's like, so does that mean like I have to let go of having high standards? Does I have to be grateful all the time and not get frustrated? Like, no. The key is recognizing yourself, and that some of the things that you don't like about yourself, you can't change. You can't fundamentally change the kind of person you are, but you don't need to. You just need to accept the kind of person that you are, and then start to make little tweaks in the things that you can do something about. So like I can't dunk a basketball, but if it was really important to me,
there's still hope.
Right. I could be a better basketball player, but just if I'm like, no, but I have to dunk, and I spent all my time and effort trying to dunk, I'd actually be getting in my own way, because instead I should just accept like, oh, I can't dunk. That's okay. I can still be a great basketball player. I'm going to be the best dribbler and passer and shooter. Or maybe I realize like, oh, I actually don't like basketball that much. I'd rather play ultimate frisbee. And that's where like positive psychology sometimes glosses over the benefits of being someone who ruminates or has strong negative emotions. Like if you don't get frustrated by things, then you're less likely to take action to fix them. And so a lot of times people are like, I just get so frustrated. What's wrong with me? Well, no, sometimes you're making that frustration worse than it needs to be by getting your hopes up really high about things you can't control or being really hard on yourself. And it's like, oh, those are the things that maybe you should, tone it down a little bit. But the fact that you are someone who gets frustrated, well, like, that's not inherently bad. That motivates you to take action, to fix something, whereas someone else who was just hunky-dory, oh, well, whatever. Oh, no, that's fine. That's good enough. That's, whatever. There's a few bugs. Someone will fix it. Oh, we'll fix it in post. Oh, I'm sure that design for the bridge is good enough. Like, being optimistic and, like, being fine with things might make you happier in the moment, but it might not make you more effective at writing the best book you can or writing the most efficient code that you can or whatever. And so that's where I find is really important to advocate for. The goal is not to be like some abstract, really happy person. Like maybe we can learn some things, but then you just look at yourself like, oh, well, what about that can I change about myself? And like maybe I can make some small tweaks. And what are the things that I can't change? And the faster I learn to accept those and appreciate myself, then I stop beating my head against the same wall over and over again.
For some reason, and I don't know where the correlation here was for me, but as you were talking about this, I started thinking about, have you guys ever heard about the statisticians who they hired to study the bombers during World War II to figure out, like, how do they bring more planes back?
I mean, it sounds vaguely familiar, like something Malcolm Gladwell talked about once, but I don't know the specifics.
So what they realized is that what they should be looking for is where on the planes that did come back, because that's all they have to study, right?
Right.
Where did they not have bullet holes?
Right.
Because if they came back and we're seeing statistics that show that planes who don't have bullet holes in this area are more likely to come back, then we'll put the armor on that. And I was trying
like they were reinforced. They were like, oh, there's a lot of bullet holes here.
Yeah.
We should put reinforcement there, but it's really they should put reinforcement where there aren't
bullet holes. Right. And I was thinking about that in contrast to like one size fits all fix, right? Well, you just learn how to dunk, right? Like just learn how to come back without crashing into the water. But what I realized is that is a one size fits all fix, but it's not the end all be all, right? The goal wasn't to bring the goal of that study wasn't to bring 100% of all fighters back. It was to bring more of them back. And so I think that's where a lot of people get hung up is that when they see a book, foolproof way to have happiness in your life, what they don't realize is that's just not possible, right? This might work for a percentage of people if the study was good enough, but you might not be in that category of people.
Right, you might not be that person.
Yeah.
But also, like, one of the things that I find myself when I'm coaching people emphasizing over and over again is that it's about choice. Because, like, with those planes in World War II, there is a way to not lose any planes. It's don't send them into battle. Then you don't lose any planes. Boom, like, problem solved. Like, oh, why is that unacceptable? Oh, because we can't let the Nazis win. It reminded me very much of this fact that I kept seeing over and over again, or this news reports over and over again of like self-driving cars like crashing into things randomly. It's like, why are these cars just like hit the back of a truck, or what are they doing? And I realized, like, right, it's very possible to make a self-driving car that doesn't ever hit anything, it'll just be like, oh, well, I just won't go anywhere. Problem solved. And you're like, no. You have to go somewhere. Okay, then it would be, okay, well then when I aren't sure what is going on, I'm just going to slow down and like process it. And then we're like, no, you can't slow down. When things are uncertain, you have to keep going 60 miles an hour. You have to get where you're going as fast as possible. Well, then, yeah, more mistakes are going to be made. And so like you just have to make this choice. Like, well, what's more important to you? Getting somewhere as fast as possible or being as safe as possible? Because you can't maximize both of those things. And that's often what's happening in the brain when we're getting stuck. Is we're like, okay, build this business or write this code, but do it perfectly the first time and don't waste any time and don't waste any money. And your brain's like, I don't know how to do that. And so you're like, do this thing that's really important and make no mistakes. That's really important. And that's not possible, or at least maybe it's possible sometimes for some people, but it's not under your direct control. Like, yeah, if you knew how to do it as fast as possible with no mistakes, you would do it, but you don't. So you're just like giving your brain these commands, and that is stressful. And your brain, these deeper circuits, these automatic circuits, will just be like, okay, well, I know the answer. Let's just not try.
Well, it's like the halftime show where they give somebody a hockey stick and they put them at center ice or wherever it is, and then they block off all but like an exact size hole that the hockey puck can go through, and you win a car if you can, get it in on one shot. It's like, well, assuming that nobody is sitting at home on a regular basis preparing for that day that they're going to be called up onto the ice so they can win a car. But if you gave that same person a year of practice, right, they would improve their percentages of making the puck in. And I guess what I'm getting at, it sounds like what we're talking about is the practice. I think it was Federer, speaking of tennis, his quote where he was talking about the primary difference between good athletes and bad athletes is that good athletes are able to experience a loss, I'm butchering it, learn from it and put it in the past quickly behind them and move on to the next thing. Tennis players are doing that thousands of times per match with every shot going into the next shot, right? I didn't hit that shot well. Okay, if I carry the weight of feeling bad about that last shot, then I'm likely going to carry that feeling into my next shot, which is likely going to impact whether or not, I can get that shot in accurately.
Right. And that's something actually I talk with people about all the time. It was definitely important in coaching ultimate frisbee, of like, there are some people who care more about winning or getting scored on, and like those people will get more frustrated by making a mistake. And the irony is like, well, if you're more frustrated by making a mistake, then you're holding on to the last point and you're getting in the way. And where people get stuck, they're like, so then I just have to stop caring about winning? And it's like, no, like you don't want to stop caring about winning. Just recognize like, where is the point where your frustration is getting in the way, and use it to what it's helpful for. And when it starts getting in the way, then like tweak it, so turn it down. So in practice, you miss a shot, don't be like, oh, well, let's keep it. No, like that's the time to get frustrated. Like use that frustration to practice that same thing 100 times. I remember another quote, someone's like, amateurs practice something until they get it right, and pros practice until they can't get it wrong. Because like they're training it into the habit circuit of their brain to just do automatically. And if you're not frustrated by doing a crappy job or being inconsistent, then you're not likely to put in enough work of preparation. But if you put in that work of preparation and now it's time for performance, then like it doesn't matter that you missed the last shot. Like what would you do differently on this shot by virtue of having missed the last shot? Oh, nothing. Okay, well then your brain wants to freak out about it because like I want to win, and you actually at that moment have to let go somewhat of your desire to control your goal of winning, because that desire is creating the frustration that's distracting you. And so the irony is you have to sometimes let go of that goal or stop focusing on that goal of winning so much to increase your chances of winning.
The next place that my head is going to now and thinking about all this is like the hiring practice. We tend to hire people who have a proven track record of success or experience is really what it usually boils down to. And like, so looking at it from that perspective, we're taking somebody who was successful in this environment with this configuration of people and mindsets and strategies and the total sum of all of everybody's experience around that person. And we're saying, well, they did it here, so they can do it here. And most companies don't think about the fact that, like, what support did that person have? And that's not like something that they think about at all. So, when you're thinking about a team of people who are at work, you've got a team of people who were separately successful elsewhere in their careers for however long their career was, for however many different companies. And so now you've got these groups of configurations of people that you've now put into a team together, into a company that's still not recognizing, hey, what was it that those people had from a support structure that enabled them to get to that spot? And how do we support that? How do we create that kind of environment, or enough of that environment, for them to have a platform of psychological safety to take the kinds of risks that most companies need people to take?
Yeah. I mean, but also I think probably along those lines, one of the mistakes that people make in the hiring is, you have your ideal candidate, and then you try and hire a bunch of copies of the same person, and teams kind of need differentiation, because if everybody is super optimistic, then they'll be like, oh, we're happier, and be like, oh, but optimistic employees are happier and they stay longer. It's like, right, but like you need some that are gonna like, poke holes in the problem and cause trouble, and people are like, oh, but we don't like them, they're just complainers. Like, well, you need to have some people who are thinking about what could go wrong. But on the flip side, if you have too many people who are all focused on what could go wrong, then they're just poking holes in everything, and then nothing gets done. So what's the right balance between those? Well, what are you trying to do, and what problems do you keep repetitively getting into? But a lot of times that's where companies or people get stuck. They're like, well, I know my hypothesis is correct of like what kinds of people we should hire, but like we keep running into the same problems. Like, maybe your assumption about what you need to do is wrong. And a lot of times where I see people go wrong on teams, I was just talking about this with some of my players yesterday, is like the person in charge is just like, well, if we just had better people, then this would all work. And it's like, buddy, that's your job as the leader of like, well, how do I get these people to communicate better? Because if we think that it's inherently like, well, there's just these people and I just need to pick the right pieces and put them together and it magically works, or it doesn't, then you as the leader are like sloughing off your responsibility to figure it out. Like, I coached my daughter's 8-year-old soccer team, and I think a lot of coaches would be like, well, and there were some challenging players, and a lot of the parents were like, oh, well, yeah, what can you do? I'm like, well, these are the people you have. So figure it out. And what is it that motivates these individual people? To get to your point about the Scrum Masters need to be coaches, it's like, well, this person is really motivated, but like they care a lot about doing things perfectly. And this person cares a lot about making their coworkers happy. And like, those are both good qualities. But if you don't appreciate them, then you're going to keep telling this person that you need to be more like that person, instead of like, oh, well, it's good that we have someone who cares about other people in the group because that helps the group dynamics. And this person, it's good that you care about being perfect or right, but just like stop being so judgmental of the other person. Like, we need all of those people to make the group function better. But a lot of times whoever's in charge looks at the people who are most similar to them and is like, yeah, we need more of me. And then you like, this is why all-star teams often perform terribly, because like, okay, yeah, we get a bunch of people who are trying to dunk the basketball on ball hogs and they don't perform well.
And that also gets back to the fact that the reason why they were able to dunk is that on the team that they were on, right, they had, like, they could finish each other's sentences. People knew the plays to get that person into the spot that allowed for the ball movements to occur, that gave him the ball at the right exact, or them the ball at the right exact time, so that they can do the thing that I'll never be able to do.
Yeah.
Jordan had Pippen.
Yeah. No, yeah. And that's like, it often comes down to recognizing, like, what is it that you need? Like, what can't you do on your own? And many high achieving people don't like to think about what they can't do on their own, because not feeling in control creates stress. Like for everyone, this is just out of the brain, how the brain works. Things that are important to you, that are potentially out of your control, creates stress and activates strong emotions. Like, that's just how the brain works. So like, when you're having a strong emotion, it means like, oh, something about this situation is important to me and might not be able to control it. But the specific things that are important to you, like, is this person mad at me? Or like, how many bugs I have in this coat? Did we get this done on time? Like, the specific things that are important to you are different between different people, and also are different within you at different parts of your life. Like, when you were 30, you're like, I have to make as much money as possible. And then when you're 50, you're like, oh, you know what? I'd rather like have a job where I don't have to travel so much, so I can spend time with my family. So that's why it's so crucial to master the principles, particularly if you're leading people, but even for yourself, because like, who you are and what your desires are and what's important to you changes over time. So if someone has the perfect job when they're 25 and they're like, oh, boom, I found the perfect job. Okay, great. And then they don't do any further introspection, and then they're there for 10, 15 years, and then they're unhappy and have no idea why. Because they're like, well, but I know that I'm in the perfect job. Right, but you yourself changed. And then your biology also changes over time. So maybe you could stay up till 3 a.m. every night and it wasn't a problem. And now you're 45 and you have kids and you're like, oh, I can't do that. Or I could do that. I was just talking with a client who was like, oh, I could do that. Oh, but then I wouldn't get to spend quality time with my kids. And at this point in my life, I'm unwilling to trade that in. And so then you start to map out, like, where are the boundaries of your limitations? Like, oh, if I only cared about getting work done, oh, then I could do that. Oh, but I'm unwilling to do that. That's where my limit is. I'm drawing that limit. I'm saying I'm unwilling to do that because this other stuff that's important to me. And where teams break down is where we start being judgmental of each other. But like, no, you shouldn't care about what's important to you. You should care about what's important to me. Or like, you shouldn't have the limitations that you have. Like, I can dunk. What's wrong with you? Why can't you dunk? And like, having the most effective individual is them being clear about what's important to them and what their limits are. And having the most effective leader is like recognizing that about all of their individuals. And when I'm coaching people, it really sort of just comes down to those two things, like what's important to you and what do you have control over? Because when you run up against your limitations, it's going to create strong emotions. Your strong emotions are going to automatically trigger your habits, whatever's programmed in there. And the emotion and habit circuit are perfectly happy to live your life on autopilot without your conscious awareness. And you're like, I'm trying to go over here, but like, why am I going over there? And if you consciously become aware of it, like, oh, it's really important to me to have control over this, and I really don't like having control, and I don't like the feeling of not having control. Oh, well, that's why I keep falling into habits of like only doing things that are safe and predictable. And so if I'm frustrated about myself for not taking bigger risks, like, oh, well, then I need to recognize that that's a choice that I am making, that I'm choosing, or my deeper brain circuits have made that choice for me. Hey, we're going to prioritize safety over progress. And if you're like, oh no, I've realized that's what I thought was important, but I realize now it's more important to me to make progress, even if we make some mistakes. And it's not going to feel comfortable. And that's where you like, yeah, I know. You can talk to yourself, as I talk to myself sometimes, like, yeah, I know, it's tough. I'm not doing this to torture myself. Like, if I wanted to play it safe and go nowhere, like, I could do that. But I want to get somewhere. Okay, well, do you know how to get somewhere without taking any risks? No. Okay, well, then the choice is up to you. You can either take the easier road that feels comfortable, great, or you could take the harder road that feels uncomfortable, but with the potential bigger reward. The cost of that one is dealing with these strong emotions. The cost of the easy road is potentially giving up on your dreams. But don't focus so much on like the cost. Focus on what you get. Which of these is more important to you, and is what you get worth the cost? And then you're like, oh yeah, if I had to be uncomfortable for, a few hours every day in order to like build my business or whatever, oh yeah, I'm willing to do that. But if you're not clear on it, you're always going to be looking for the easiest way.
This is really fascinating. Can you explain for our listeners the 4 major neurotransmitters and how they affect our brain? Because to me, that is really that was like one of the aha moments for me.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things about the brain. Like, I love talking about the specifics, and probably in the upward spiral, I share like too many of the specifics because like, one, I'm really excited about the neuroscience and like getting into and nerding about all about the details. And I also understand like how these principles are helpful. So like, I'm often telling people like, don't worry so much about like the like specifics. You don't have to memorize all of them. Just like understand these concepts of like how they fit together. Like, you don't need to memorize what each brain region or chemical is. Like, you just need to understand like, oh, that's the brain region that keeps me stuck in my habits, and this is the one that moves me towards my goals. Like, you don't need to memorize what they're called, but like yeah, there are lots of different neurotransmitters, but some of the big ones are all concentrated in the prefrontal cortex, which is the analytical part of the brain. This is the most highly evolved part of the brain. It's like the adult in the room. And a lot of times we can get stuck in thinking like, oh, right, I just need to be more of an adult and like control my impulses and override my emotions. But it's possible to be too much of an adult, and then you like suck all of the fun and enjoyment out of what you are doing. So the key is about finding the right balance between these like higher order brain circuits and these lower brain circuits that are processing and communicating with these neurotransmitters. So the big 3 in the prefrontal cortex are serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And dopamine also plays a big role in our habits and impulses. And so a lot of that is about enjoyment and sort of getting addicted to things and motivation to try and get goals done. And that's really useful. sometimes. It's why like setting a goal and saying, I'm going to do this can release a little bit of dopamine as you move towards the goal. Like it's why if I'm trying to get you to complete a form and you answer the first 3 questions and click next, it'll say, oh, you're 25% of the way done. Gives me a little progress bar because that immediately sets up a goal. My brain's like, ooh, give me a little burst of dopamine because I started making progress to the goal, and it's going to keep releasing dopamine to try and move me towards that goal and then give me a little boost. And that's awesome. As long as in the bigger picture, those goals are aligned with what my deeper values are. But if it's not, then I'm just going to keep jumping through these hoops because that's what dopamine is going to make me do. And it's going to move me away from my goals. And that's why, like, I don't like to think of a lot of these people described as like, oh, dopamine's a happy chemical. It's like, no, it's really important in like action and motivation. Serotonin is another key one. It is the primary target of most antidepressant medications. And its job is to sort of help us with willpower to connect future abstract imaginary rewards to our current actions. So like if my friend's like, hey, you want some pizza? Or like, hey, we're all going to a party, you want to come? Like, ooh, boom, that releases a little bit of dopamine in the reward circuit. I'm just going to react on impulse and reward. Like dopamine can get me to do those pleasurable things. If I'm like, ooh, no, but I'm working on this project that's really important to me. I have a deadline. I'm calling investors. Like I'm creating an app or whatever. Like that's an imaginary thing. It doesn't exist yet. So how am I supposed to override that impulse? Well, that's what serotonin does. It takes these imaginary future goals that don't actually exist yet, but our prefrontal cortex is good at imagining them, and helps us make them present so we can override the little habits and impulses that we'd otherwise do. Norepinephrine is another big one that helps us appropriately respond to stress. Like stress often gets a bad rap because people think that stress is bad. But scientifically, stress is just like your brain and body reacting to change. So like if the temperature goes down, like you have to do something different in your body. Otherwise your body temperature will go down more and you'll die. If your blood sugar drops, well, you have to eat something at some point. Otherwise you'll die. So if a lion starts running at you, well, like you either have to hide or run. You gotta do something. Otherwise you'll probably die. And so like that is what stress is. And all of our emotions are connected to these sort of physiology. And when something happens that needs us to respond, norepinephrine gets released in the prefrontal cortex, and it also triggers our fight or flight response throughout the body. And that's really helpful as long as it's sort of tuned the right way and we're not overreacting to things, but also crucially important that we don't underreact to things. And since the world is complex and we have multiple different desires, it's really challenging to get that perfectly balanced. But like that balance is sort of what we're going for, because when you're not stressed enough, things are boring, you feel tired, fatigued. As you get more and more stressed, you get more excited, you're more motivated because you're getting more dopamine and more norepinephrine being released in the prefrontal cortex. You get excited, you focus more. That's why like keeping score in a game is more exciting than just like, oh, whatever, let's play to over, or like having a deadline. Like, okay, I don't know if I can do it by then. And so there's this sort of Goldilocks zone of peak performance, which is not, oh, let me remove all stress. It's like, oh no, let me increase stress to the point where I'm in this like flow state. But from there, if I increase stress more, where I have an unrealistic deadline, or I'm focused on all of the negative consequences of failure, or people are yelling at me or whatever, well, then I go too far over. it's increasing the concentrations of these neurotransmitters even more, but that actually disrupts the proper functioning of the prefrontal cortex. And so these automatic habit and motion circuits just take over. So often what happens is someone like is overthinking something because they're really stressed out and they're second guessing their decisions. And so they're not taking action. And then they're like, oh, I'm not taking action. I must be lazy. Stop being so lazy, you idiot. But like the reason they're taking inaction or being inactive is because they're all the way over here on the curve and they're getting in the way of their performance, and they're trying to stress themselves out more and get mad at themselves because at some previous point in their life, they were over here, and getting mad at themselves helped them achieve their peak performance. But that's where you need to realize like, oh, am I overwhelmed? Because like, yeah, in high school when it was easy, I could just be like, stop being lazy, you idiot, and study, and then you'll get a better grade. And so for many of the people who succeeded early in life, they're used to being hard on themselves because it helped them in situations that weren't that challenging. Now that you're building a company or like you have hundreds of people depending on you, now the stress is inherently much higher, but those same habits of being hard on yourself are programmed into your habit circuit. And so when things get stressful, it's just going to do that. And then it's going to make it more stressful. And so then you're going to do that more. And that's where we just need to recognize our own tendencies. Like, oh, this habit I have of being hard on myself, oh, that was really helpful for earlier in my career, whatever. It's not helpful right now. So thank you, brain, for trying to control these things. Like, I'm going to be kinder to myself. It's like, no, you can't be kind to yourself because what if you don't wear everything? And he's like, oh, right. Okay. Well, me focusing on all of the potential negative consequences, just like the tennis player, like, no, but I can't, I know I messed up that shot, but if I miss this shot right now, then I'm going to lose the set and then I'm going to move it. Yep. Thank you. You are absolutely correct about that. It's just unhelpful at this point in the match. You can remind me at it when we're practicing tomorrow, but for right now, I'm just going to focus on bending my knees and hitting the ball. Actually, this is an example I give sometimes in some of my talks. Can't remember what year in the U.S. Open, but Serena Williams was in the semifinals, and she was like 100-1 favorite. She was ranked number 1 in the world. She's playing like the number 43rd ranked player in the world, Roberta Vinci. And Roberta Vinci, I think, actually lost the first set, but then came back to win the next 2 sets and won the match. And the interviewer asked her at the end, he's like, when you woke up this morning, what gave you the confidence to think that you could beat Serena Williams? She did this great Italian accent. She was like, oh, no. I didn't think that I could beat Serena, so I didn't think about it. I know that, she hit the balls in the court, and I just run and I hit the ball, and I run and I hit the ball, and like, don't try and think that Serena's in the other side of the court, and don't try and hit all of the balls. Just hit the ball and run and hit the ball and run and hit the ball and run, and then I won. And I think like that is often where people get in their own head, is they're like trying to tell themselves, like, no, this is really important. I have to achieve at this peak performance. But it's like, buddy, you're already at peak performance because you're playing Serena Williams. So this is the time to like stop thinking that you're playing Serena Williams and just focus on the stupid little things of hit the ball on the court. And if you miss the ball, okay, well, don't worry about that ball. Then just hit the next ball. And you just keep doing that. But you have to, if you master the underlying principles and understand your own tendencies, then you can turn up the volume when you need to, or turn down the volume when you're getting in your own. I know that was only 3 neurotransmitters, but there's I didn't know what you were referring to as the 4. There's 10 other, GABA and endorphins.
You hit on it. I mean, I was thinking, endorphins was the other one that I was thinking about that you didn't touch on, but because I was just thinking like, I think your answer was better, to be honest, than I was originally thinking. But I was just thinking like dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin.
Oh yeah, right. Oxytocin, like that's important in connecting with other people. And oxytocin um, also modulates dopamine, but that works differently in different people. So some people, oxytocin has a big effect on their dopamine system, and other people don't. That's why some people are like, it doesn't matter what other people think about me. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And some people will, like, if they like the people around them and think the people around them care about them, then they're going to perform at a much higher level because they're going to have more dopamine. But like sometimes we look at consistent performers and like, well, that person's consistent and this person's like, whoa, they're all over the place. But that doesn't mean the person who's all over the place is a lower performer. Like, I sometimes think people who are more emotionally reactive, that's a power that many people don't have. Many people are just like, I don't care if I make a mistake, and they're just sort of chugging along. And the emotional reactivity of the brain is what gives you, more motivation, more creativity, more ability to lead. You just have to use it in the right way. And those kinds of emotionally reactive brains, I often call high performing brains. I like to think of them like you're like a Ferrari, but in a Ferrari, like the gas pedal is really sensitive and the steering wheel is really sensitive and the brakes are really sensitive. And you know what? You can't go off-roading. And if you don't recognize what situations the Ferrari works best in, then you're going to be stuck being like, this stupid car gets terrible gas mileage and like, it's so jerky. And every time I put my foot on the gas, I feel like I'm going to crash. Like, why can't I just have a 2014 Toyota Camry? Like that guy he's so consistent. He does everything. So right. But he's not capable of performing at the peak of you are, because if you have the right road and the right conditions, you will smoke him every time. But like, just recognize your own tendencies so you can accept your limitations and appreciate what you have, and then unlock your full potential.
It's powerful. Yeah. As Drew and I have learned working together over 2 years, we are not opposites. We are very much the same when it comes to like our work ethic, and we're perfectionists to a fault at times. We get in our own way with the podcast, and we have to tell ourselves like, it's not that important to have everything be perfect. But I think we're also both neurodivergent, where like that plays an aspect of it as well. And I come from a family of ADHD, where it's like, that's a whole nother part, right? Less dopamine or whatever, where you hyper focus. It's not that you don't have focus, it's that you have less control of it. And that's what you made me think of, right? Where it's like, I will get a whole week's worth of work done all at once, and I'll work into the night, and I'll burn the midnight oil, and like, I just super hyper focus. But then the rest of the time it's like, man, why can't I just focus at the bare minimum to get this done? And it gets very frustrating.
Well, so that's where a lot of times people come to me and they tell me that, I have ADHD, I have anxiety. It's like, okay, that's just a description. Like you meet certain criteria, that's just describing you. It's like if someone's like, well, I can't play basketball, I'm short. Okay, like, yeah, it might be harder for you to play basketball than someone who's 7 feet tall, but like, is it important to you? Well, then there's a million things you could do to get better at it. So like, ADHD is a sort of description of what is easy for you or what your tendencies are. So it's helpful to know that about yourself. But many people use it as a reason to judge themselves, which they just get in their own way. People who don't have ADHD have a harder time, thinking about a bunch of different things. Or everyone, regardless of whether you have ADHD or not, finds an easier time to focus on something that they are excited about. So like, to me, it's like, well, it doesn't matter whether you technically meet the criteria of ADHD or not. Just like, stop getting mad at yourself for the fact that like this boring task is not exciting to you and it's hard to focus on. If you already know that you have a diagnosis of ADHD, oh, great. That's even more reason to be more compassionate with yourself. And you just, that's part of like, okay, well, if I have a Ferrari and that guy has a pickup truck, well, we might get to the same place in completely different ways. He's going to take the shortcut that goes over the hill. I'm going to take the longer way because I can go faster that way. I might beat him or make it at the same time, but like either way, I can't do it the way that he does it because I tried to drive over the 4-wheel drive, I'd get stuck. But I'm not going to mad at myself for having a Ferrari, or the other guy, I'm not going to get mad at myself for having a pickup truck. Like, just accept what it is that you have. So like some people who have ADHD, they get mad at themselves for, I procrastinate or whatever. It's like, okay, what's the difference between procrastination and just doing it all really quickly? Like, the difference is in your intention. Like, why you describe it as procrastination and not just, oh yeah, I just enjoyed and lived my life for 5 days, and then the last day I just did it all overnight. The only difference is in like, well, what are you telling yourself you're supposed to be doing, and what are you judging yourself for? And if you can just accept, oh, you know what, I'm really good, get everything done at the last minute. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so talented that like I can do it all at the last minute. Other people who aren't as talented as me procrastinate and then they fail. So like, if I just stop getting mad at myself, oh, then I can enjoy my 5 days beforehand and then just do it all really quick. On the other hand, if like many of the people I talk with, they're like, yeah, but I know I could do a better job if I just started earlier. Well, then you don't have to stop procrastinating. You want to do a better job. It's not going to always be easy. So then like, 3 days earlier when you're like, ugh, I want to do this, your automatic inclination is like, oh, why don't I just do it later? And that's where you are probably going to get stuck in for like 6 months until you're like, didn't I tell myself I wanted to stop procrastinating? Oh, right. Then you say, oh, thank you, brain, for reminding me that it would be easier to do it later. And I'm confident in my ability to do it later, but I want to do a better job. So I'm willing to do that now, even though it's more difficult. But it's challenging because our prefrontal cortex is very good at imagining things that don't exist. So we see, oh, here's my one option of I could leave it to the last minute, or I could do it now. And if leaving it to the last minute would make now easier and doing it now would make now harder, our prefrontal cortex is like, oh, what if? And hear me out. We could leave it to the last minute and do an amazing job. That sounds better. And like, we can imagine that, and therefore doing it all at the last minute and doing a crappy job, or doing it now and doing a better job. Neither of those seems as good as leaving it to the last minute and doing an amazing job. And so because I can imagine it now, all of my actual options, I call this the imaginary third option, all of my actual options seem worse by comparison, and I have less dopamine to do either of these things, and so I'm just going to fall back into whatever my habit is. But as soon as I can recognize what's important to me and what my limitations are, I can be like, oh yeah, oh, if I knew how to leave it all to the last minute and do an amazing job, I would do that. Oh, I've tried doing that for the last 5 years. And your brain is going to be really convincing. You're like, no, but now this time's different. No, now you can really do it. You're like, right. I listened to my brain, my habit circuit, the last 4 years. And it's like, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 100 times. Okay, now I'm going to try something different. I'm like, maybe I can't do it. So I can say, oh, thank you, brain, for having so much confidence in me that I can put it all to the last minute and do as amazing job as I want. I have tried that experiment 100 times. I'm going to try something different. And when I try something different, because it is different and not my habit, it's going to be more stressful. And it's your brain's like, see, I told you you're going to make it. And you're like, yep, thank you. And you just have to deal with those emotions. And it doesn't make those emotions go away. It doesn't eliminate them. But when you realize like, oh, there's not an easier way to get where I'm trying to go, then I stop. Like it's still a hard road, but I stop making it harder than it needs to be because I stopped telling myself maybe there's an easier way. I can just accept it. Like, nope, it's hard.
I do not resemble any of what you just described at all. Just want to lay that on the table.
That reminded me when I was writing my workbook, I came across a quote. I think it was from like Obama's chief of staff, who had a plaque on his desk that said, "Hard things are hard." And I was like, I'm gonna like remind myself of that, because like when I'm writing this book and trying to like think of all these different examples and put all this neuroscience together and make it motivating and interesting, and I'm like, oh, why is this so hard? I'm like, right, because it's hard. So if it feels hard, yep, that's exactly how it's supposed to feel. But a lot of times when particularly if you're a really smart, talented person, certainly with ADHD tendencies, that you have those feelings of those times where everything's effortless. You're like, why can't this be one of those times where everything's effortless? And that's where you have a choice to make. Like, well, I could wait around hoping this to be effortless, or I could just accept, like, yeah, I don't like doing things that aren't effortless, and this is hard, but it's important, so I'm going to do it anyway, even though it's not easy.
I feel like you just explained everything that I've been trying to figure out for a really long time.
Well, wonderful. I mean, it took me many years of studying neuroscience. Like I was studying the brain. Like I started majoring in neuroscience in like 1998. I took my first neuroscience class, and I finished my PhD in 2010, and I wrote this book in 2015. And it was like all that time, it's like, oh, finally, I've understood the brain well enough to see how it all fits together. And I had also been coaching college women for like 12 years at that point. Now, at this point, it's been like 20 years. And like seeing it from those two sides, and also like my own development, is like, right, the theoretical approach and seeing how it works in me and seeing how it works in other people. It took me a long time to figure that out and see how it fits together. But I feel so grateful now. I'm like, oh, like this hard-won information I have, like it can be really helpful for other people.
I feel like I've been saying this same thing now for 40 years in therapy, and getting the response of, well, you just do it, right? The one size fits all kind of approach to it, or I get handed a habit. I get handed like a set of habits, follow these steps, but nobody's ever really kind of explained to me in the way that you just did, like what's going on up here in those, I know it, I feel it, right? Like I've definitely been in those moments where I am so absolutely sure that the plan to do it later is there's no reason why it won't work this time. Right? There's no reason why it won't work this time. And so later comes around and I'm like, what would be really cool? If I did it even later.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, that happened. There are people who procrastinated and they waited till the last minute, and then they didn't finish the assignment and they failed out of college, or they got fired from their first job. Like, you only have a habit of procrastinating usually when you're very successful at it, because that stress of the deadline boosts your dopamine, and then it helps your ADHD brain focus on what you're doing. And because you're so amazingly smart and talented, you can get it all done in that little tiny period of time, whereas someone who is of lesser talent couldn't, and they would just have failed. Yeah. So like, if you are successful and you procrastinate, your brain has learned you are successful because you procrastinate. And if you're like, no, I need to stop procrastinating, your brain's like, but that's the only way I know how to be successful. And it really is about, it creates stress to be different. And you really need to come up with a reason, like, well, why don't I just accept that this is how I am? Because that's one possibility. And if you're like, oh, I can't accept this. Oh, because now I have kids and I don't want to wait till 3 a.m. because I'd rather spend time with my kids. Oh, okay, well, that's your reason. It's certainly easier to not change, but if it's important to you, then you can start to see, oh, right, like what thoughts are popping into my head am I believing that like aren't actually true or aren't actually as important as I think they are, or I'm not fully acknowledging what my limitations are, that like, yes, if I only cared about being with my kids, I could do that. If I only cared about getting this done, I could do that. Oh, but I care about both things. And the place where I'm currently setting that line is like, I don't need to change it completely. I just need to, I just need to adjust a little bit.
There were like last night, there were definitely 15 instances between like 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning where I paused to say, you should get up now and go do the dishes. But I finally did them at like 2 o'clock in the morning and didn't do a great job of it at all. But, you know, and you're right. I was successful at getting up this morning, right? But the reason why I want to do it differently is I don't feel good about doing it like this anymore. Like the level of stress, right, has now exceeded the threshold for
but
the
that's
strategy.
The crucial piece is it becomes an internal motivation, like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, as opposed to, you know, somebody else is telling me to do this and I have to follow their guidelines. It's your body creates less stress hormones when you are the one moving towards what's important to you, as opposed to running away from what someone else is telling you. It just because it's the exact same thing as like, it's the difference between you hunting something and something hunting you. Like you can be running, the thing that you're doing is the exact same thing, but if it's from, no, but I'm attacking this thing that is exciting to me, it's much less stressful than if I'm like, oh, I have to deal with all these regulations and guidelines being externally imposed.
I'm neither the hunter or the hunted. I'm the guy on the couch watching Severance. I'm joking. But yeah, no, this has been amazing, really.
Yeah.
And I've definitely, like, as we were talking, I clicked the buy now button on your book. I want to know more about the chemistry of what's going on.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I think that's like, I don't know why I haven't.
Yeah. Well, the book is, and you know, the book is a great way to just learn and just get a sort of mindset shifts, like, oh, like that's what's going on. And like, hey, here are the tools. You probably know about a lot of them. Exercise. Yeah, everyone knows you're supposed to exercise and sleep, but it shows you like, no, this is how they work to change these things. They're not just sort of generic advice. You can see how they fit together. And if people want more guidance, that's why I created a coaching program. I created a lot of other resources, like on social media at Alex Korb, PhD. I created some free resources on my website, alexkorbphd.com. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will get benefit from reading the book, but like, you also don't have to figure it out entirely on your own. Like sometimes you can get by just following a recipe. And sometimes it's helpful to take a cooking class because learning information and learning skills are a little bit different. And learning information is really good from a book, but learning skills, you often need a coach. And a lot of times people get stuck because they're like, oh, I think all I need is information because I'm so smart and I can figure out everything. And they don't accept like, no, maybe like I need skills. Like just reading a book about shooting a basketball isn't as helpful as like doing it or having a coach.
Yeah, so alexkorbphd.com is your website. That's alexkorbphd.com.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to reach you as well if somebody wants to get coaching from you?
Yeah. And I mean, I have some free resources. You can sign up for my email list. And yeah, I have usually people like I'm trying to encourage people to do it on their own. It's like, hey, you have all these self-help resources. And it's when someone's like, no, but I want help. Oh, well, like that's very different than someone telling you you need help. I often tell people like, you don't need help. Like, just try doing it, making these small changes. When people encounter like, oh, but I want help. I know that could help me get through this faster. Well, that's when you're a great candidate for coaching. When people aren't sure if they want help, or they're not really committed to their goals, or they're really conflicted, that's often where therapy is best. Like, I just talk about it and figure it out. Like, you don't need to figure it all out on your own, but like, talk to a therapist. Coaching is often best when someone's like, no, I know what I'm trying to get to. I'm really frustrated with these things. I need to learn these skills to get out of my own way. Like, can you teach me? But yeah, I'm happy to teach people who want to learn those skills.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alex. This has been great.
Yeah,
great talking with you guys.
Thank you very much.